all day long, you are going to be hearing about this district and that district and these numbers and that numbers and the ramifications of Trump losing the House and winning in the Senate. I want to tell you, and you may not hear this anywhere else, through all that fog, Trump won a tremendous victory that has nothing to do with politics. Trump won a cultural victory, which is exactly what he was sent to Washington to do. It is why the people sent him there, is because they've had no voice. They've been insulted by Hollywood, by the news media, by the Academy. All this time, Donald Trump stood up and fought back. And he fought back. He just ripped him. He ripped him to pieces, and they brought out the big guns, right? They told you you were evil. They told you he was evil. They told you anyone who came in contact with him is evil. If you voted for him, you had no conscience. Racist, 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 racist. All this stuff they've been telling you for years. They just amped it up. News media, Hollywood, every comedian, every single one of them, they demonized him. They demonized you. And yesterday, the voters turned out, and it was kind of a typical midterm election. That is a tremendous victory. They were expecting a blue wave. It didn't turn up. They won 34 seats in the House, which is like half of what the Republicans lost 34 seats in the House, which is half of what Obama lost during his midterm election. 3 of those seats, by the way, were probably a gift from the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court that just by force redistricted Pennsylvania and took away the right of the reigning Republicans to redistrict it. They said, oh, it's too political, as if that hasn't been going on since the country began. So 3 of those are very questionable wins, but they did win them. And we Republicans, the Republicans, won seats in the Senate. That's amazing. I mean, you have to stop for a minute. Before you get to the political ramifications, you have to understand what that means. First, let's just look at what they were expecting, right? They unleashed. They did. They just came out with one thing after another. Bigot, 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 racist, racist, racist. You stink, you lie, you evil. The word lie, which you're really not supposed to even use in journalism, the word lie, immediately they started using it. If he talked about crowd sizes, never mind what Obama did on healthcare, never mind what he did with the terrorist bill heirs. If you said your crowd size was too large, you're a liar. You're a liar, and the people who voted for you are liars, and the people who voted for you are racist, and you're a racist. Everything they did, and they thought they had this. They thought that the effect, because they're living in a bubble, they thought the effect was going to be great. Somebody, I don't know who to credit on this, but somebody put together this blue wave montage of predictions before and the results afterwards. Listen to this, because this is the victory.
Democrats are banking on a blue wave.
Democrats hoping to ride a blue wave.
And I think we're going to see a real blue wave.
Yeah, I feel very good.
There's an enormous tsunami-like blue wave coming.
There was a huge blue wave.
Can the president save his party and knock down that?
So the heart of this victory, and it is a tremendous cultural victory. Listen, politics goes back and forth, power goes back and forth. But what these guys have been doing to Republicans and to you and to the normal people in the middle of the country, to anybody who didn't buy into their leftist agenda, has been going on unchecked. It has been going on for decades. There has been no one to stand up against it. Trump has stood up against it. He was sent to do that. He was sent to do that very thing. That was why when they heard his voice, for all of us on the right, including me, who didn't see it, who didn't understand, didn't see why they were acting out of anger, they were acting out of anger because of the way they had been treated, and they answered that. And this wave, you want to talk about where the wave was, the blue wave of garbage that has been dumped on the American people since Donald Trump got into office and for 20, 30 years before that. And he answered it, and he walked away. He walked away without a scratch, because this is a normal midterm result. That's an amazing thing. It is an amazing thing. And at the heart of it is Brett Kavanaugh. if you're a regular listener to this show, you knew when Brett Kavanaugh was installed in the Supreme Court, I was in seventh heaven. That's why. It wasn't because a great conservative justice had been elevated, though I hope that turns out to be the case. It was not because of that. It was because they threw everything at him. They unleashed hell on the guy, and they told you again and again, people in suits and ties, people who should be adults, people who should know better, sat on TV and looked at you and said, if you don't believe women, these lying, many of them lying women, if you don't believe women, you stink. You hate women. If you don't believe these women, you are not a good person. You are as good as a sexual offender. You're letting this rapist get to the court. I mean, I've been joking about the fact that he's going to be chasing Ruth Bader Ginsburg around the bench. He goes, help, help, there's a rapist in the Supreme Court. Obviously, it was all a lie. It was all a put-up job, but they threw everything. You have to admit it. You go back and remember the New York Times. I was raped, therefore I believe this person. CNN, certainly, NBC, ABC, they just kept throwing this stuff at you. Because of the teamwork of Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump, they stood up to that. And not only did they win, not only did they install these guys in the Supreme Court, but they won with the people. They won with the electorate. Every single Republican senator who voted against Kavanaugh from a red state lost. Heidi Heitkamp, North Dakota, Claire McCaskill, Missouri, Joe Donnelly of Indiana. They voted against Trump's Supreme Court pick, and all three of them lost. And the one guy who didn't buy in, Joe Manchin in West Virginia, he's the only guy who survived. He's the only guy who survived. And, you know, Trump's campaigning, he went out and campaigned, and that helped his people. And Obama went out and campaigned. He campaigned in Indiana and in Florida, and the Senate flipped. Ron DeSantis won the governorship in Florida against Andrew Gillum. Rick Scott, they say they're going to recount that, but it looks like a clear victory. Rick Scott won the Senate seat over Bill Nelson. In Indiana, Mike Braun over Joe Donnelly. These are places where Obama showed up. The saint showed up. The savior of America showed up. You know, all he would say was me, 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 me. Oh, I'm responsible for this economy that Trump started. In Georgia, Brian Kemp over Stacey Abrams for governor. Obama did nothing. He accomplished nothing. I mean, it's hard for me to convey the victory over the forces of narrative, the forces of culture that Trump has won. It is an amazing, amazing thing. And was there a price? Yes, there's a price, and I'm going to talk about that. There's a price for everything. Everything comes with a price. No victory is without a price. But you have to pause for just a second and say, look at this. You know, sure, there are going to be ramifications of losing the House. There are going to be all kinds of things that happen. But they don't even get it. They don't even get it. Trump came out today in his morning interview, the morning press conference, and he gave a very bipartisan, very measured speech. And what he said was, which was really smart, he said, you know, if we'd only won a couple of, if we'd kept the House but only had a couple of votes in the House, it wouldn't have been so good for us because those people could then have twisted our arms and tried to get anything. He said they were going to do that. They would have grandstanded. Now let the Democrats come. We'll adjust their desires on infrastructure and things like that, and we will get some bipartisan action. Or they're going to investigate, and we'll investigate them right back. Okay, that's a very bipartisan statement. A challenge, a big challenge to the Democrats. We'll talk about that in a second, what the Democrats are going to do next. But, you know, this is what he said, and he started taking questions, and Jim Acosta, Jim, look at me, I'm Jim Acosta, started in on him. It was a beautiful thing to behold because these are the losers. These guys are the losers. They deserve to be losers. They don't do their job well. We hate them because they lie. We hate them because they lied for 8 years. And it was just like watching a guy swat a fly. And if you can't see this, if you're just listening, at one point, the woman whose assignment it is to take the mic away from Jim Acosta went to take the mic away because President Trump said he was finished answering questions from him. And Acosta basically manhandled her. I mean, he just wouldn't let her get the mic. If a right winger, a conservative had done that, it would be the news from now for forever. It would have been the front page picture in the New York Times, a former newspaper. But when Jim Acosta does it, they're going to ignore it. But we're not ignoring it. The people aren't ignoring it. Neither is Donald Trump. And now these guys are nobody. Watch. This is a long clip, but watch this exchange. It is well worth it.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in
Not
this
at all.
election
No, not
to
at all.
try to keep?
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process, and I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign.
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
Your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
That's
true.
But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's
not
an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings
Let
would
me
be
ask,
much better.
if I may ask one other question, Mr. President. If I may ask
Peter,
one
go
other
ahead.
question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's
Mr.
enough.
President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr.
Excuse
President,
me. That's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other
Peter,
question,
let's
if
go.
I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned
indictments-
about anything with
that you
the
may have
Russian
indictments coming down?
investigation because it's a hoax.
Are you-
That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
He looked like he was going to come and take the mic himself when he wrestled the woman. And the key question in there, the key moment, which sums up this entire thing, it sums up the entire victory that Trump won last night, was when Acosta said to him, "Why did you characterize the caravan as an invasion when I, Jim, look at me, I'm Jim, Acosta, say it wasn't? Why? How did you dare? You're just the president of the United States. We're the press. How did you dare to characterize it in a way that we don't approve of and continue to do that when we told you were racist? We told you were deplorable. We told you were hateful." And Trump smashed him like a spider. It is an amazing victory that after all this demonization, all they got was a typical, normal midterm election. That it really tells you something. If Republicans can seize hold of this, and you know what, not just Republicans in Washington, if the people here in Hollywood, who whisper to me and come up to me and say, I kind of like what you do. I don't want to raise my voice. If all those frightened people would just look at how it's done, if all the people who don't make the movie because they're afraid the critics at the New York Times are going to slam it, if all the people who don't say what they mean, in classrooms around the country, who write the papers, these students tell me, I say what the professor wants me to say so I can get the grade. If all of them would learn from Donald Trump that you can do this and win, the country is largely on your side on this issue. Look, we disagree about things. That's fine. It's fine to be a little bit on the liberal side, fine to be on the conservative side. That's not the point. The point is they want us to shut up if we won't do them a favor and just dry up and die. They want us to shut up. We sent Trump to say, no, here is how we feel. We're going to talk about it. We won't do it. If only the people in Washington and in Hollywood and in the Academy will take this tip, this could be a turning point in the culture. It really could. It's been like this since the 60s. Since the 60s, these guys have been hammering everybody they don't like as racist, as sexist, and all the various ists and phobias and this whole thing. Donald Trump has turned this around and shown that he can walk away without a scratch.